There it is. Get the chat going. Okay. All right, Julian, anything you want to make sure we cover today as far as the national team, city, anything you want me to set you up for that you like or feel very strongly about, or are you just going to roll with the flow here?
I think I'll just roll with the flow. Nothing.
Cool.
Yeah, I'll just see where I want to step in.
Sounds great. Oh man, I'm going to do a wild national team. Starting 11. What's center back? Goodness gracious. There we go. All right. I'm going to get us going. Stu, I'm glad you added that stuff. I appreciate it, man. I'll make sure we cover that. I'm going to hit record. Good evening, everyone. Okay, here we go. Welcome, everyone, to Flyover Footy on the Big 550. Oh, hold on a second. I think there's quite a bit of noise. Let me start over. Yeah, actually, I think, Julian, it's when you're moving. Do you think you can put your headphones like outside of your collar? I think it might be rubbing your collar.
Here, let me.
Sorry about that.
No, you're good. Let me actually. I could probably just switch to my AirPods real quick.
Oh, cool. What's up, chat? That was it. Stu, are you in with us? Can you hear me?
They're actually about to die.
Cool. No, I think that fixed it.
Is this better if I just have them out?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Sorry about that.
No worries. Stu, are you with us? Can you hear me?
Yeah, am I come through?
Yes. I was worried my internet was bad.
Yeah, I think mine is being a
Julie,
little weird right now. I was about to mention.
Yeah, actually, you're not synced. I hear your voice and then I see your mouth move.
Yeah, sorry. The university internet has been so bad lately. They're having they had like an outage the other day.
I think it caught back up. I think we're okay. Let's just roll with it.
Okay.
And Julian, sometimes it helps, like if you freeze or you feel like it's bad, just like log out and come right back in, and I'll make sure you get in back with us, and we'll just jump you back in.
All right. Thank you.
Sound good? Thank you. Right. Here we go. Welcome, everyone, to Flyover Footy on the Big 550 KTRS. We are presented by Noble Ice Vineyards. It's going to be a weird show, everyone. We have a different lineup than usual. It's a fun lineup, and I'm excited about it. And also, the lineup of the show, as far as what we're going to cover, is going to be a bit different. But I hope you enjoy the change. It'll be a bit more laid back, topical, rather than an in-depth dive into whatever the next game is, because is an international break. So to do that with me today, I have Julian Trejo and Stu Holtgren to help me do it. Julian, first with you, like, how's it going? It's been basically a full season since we talked to you last.
Yeah, there's a lot going on in my academic life. If anyone keeps up with any of the work that I've done, you would know that I haven't been doing a lot lately. This semester and last semester I've done a lot. I'm in the middle of midterms right now, so all the journalism and like the city stuff definitely got put on the back burner because obviously this is the most important thing is my school. So
Yeah, Julian, I saw you doing really good work in the press room while you were going to Wash U. I assume you're still at Wash U and getting your degree going. So, I wanted to bring you into the podcast last year, and we're talking national team today, and wanted to bring you in for this as well today. So, thanks for joining us, man. Wash U, it's still the thing. You're still kind of doing the same major. I know how it is in college. You guys, we all like to kind of change things around here and there.
yeah, so this is the start of my junior year, so still got some more time. My primary major is secondary education,
Nice.
and so I'll get my certification in the social sciences, and then I have a secondary major in psychology. So that's part of why my course load is so heavy because I'm trying to fulfill the requirements for 2 degrees. But this is kind of like my full time job is just going to school. So it's kind of I just have to deal with it basically.
Yeah. I mean, hey, it's some of the best years of your life. The
It is.
future is bright, though. Everyone, we got Julian's going to be a future teacher for our kids, so that's amazing. Thanks for being with us today, man. Stu, how's it going, man? What's new?
I am not a teacher, thankfully. I don't have the affect for that. So, bravo, Julian. That's a really hard profession. So, that's awesome you're doing that. Now I'm doing well. I'm rocking a Cusco FC kit right now. I picked up in Peru a couple months ago.
Yeah.
I have to describe because my camera's still not working. But yeah, no, I'm excited. You know what? I'm just slightly a little, envious of Matt Baker right now being in Prague. Looks like he's having a lot of fun.
Yes, I can't believe we haven't mentioned it, but yeah, Matt is on a cruise that's going to visit Prague and work its way through a little bit of Europe, and I think ending in Hungary, if I'm not mistaken. So, having the time of his life, I'm sure, but we do miss him today. I actually feel like we got bailed out the fact that it's an international break on this one. So I'm excited to dig into the lineup is like this. Today we're going to talk about CITY2 because they're on a tear. There's a lot of interesting, fun news to talk about with that. Then we're going to talk a little bit about St. Louis City, and we're going to bring in Julian's opinion because we need a fresh opinion in here, everyone. I keep filling the world with my same opinions week after week. So that'll be fun. And then at the end, we're going to talk about the national team for as long as we can here on the Big 550 KTRS. So strap in. It's going to be a fun show. Thank you for joining us. Like I said, let's start with CITY2. There's a lot going on. First up is the CITY2 victory. It was a 5-0 victory over Tacoma Defiance. It was the final game of the regular season. Just an absolute, tear of a game for the St. Louis players. Dita Armstrong is a name that hasn't been mentioned a lot this season. He got 2 goals. Glover got a goal. Mackay Joyner got one at the end. And who am I missing? Klein got a PK goal. So those are the 5. The entire team looked great. Obviously, the clean sheet from the defense, which we're going to talk about stats here in a little bit. That's definitely a feature of the team this year. But we'll talk about that in a second. But I wanted to see, Julian, I don't know how much you've watched CITY2. Obviously, it's helping out the main team. But guys, let's hear what you think about the CITY2 season this year and just in general what you think about CITY2.
Well, I guess I can go first. So I actually saw a CITY2 game live over the summer when they played against LAFC, LAFC2. I think it was like in July, the end of July. That game, I think it finished like 4-3. There was like 2 PKs. That was a crazy game. Definitely, they come with everything. I think they have a nice little blend of the pressing intensity, but they also have a lot of good like little passing sequences, ball movement. Obviously, a lot of young guys. A lot of them obviously are kind of familiar with each other. They're not entirely new. So yeah, I definitely can see that cohesion, and Bobby Murphy's got them flying right now.
Yes, he does. Stu, were you able to catch that game against Tacoma?
I wasn't actually in the crowd for that. I wasn't one of the record-breaking attendees for that,
Yes.
uh, which I'm sure we'll get to later. But no, City Two. I mean, years ago we talked about what kind of approach we thought City Two was going to take, since every MLS club kind of approaches their reserve team a little bit differently, and this kind of blended approach of young guys with some kind of high upside, not veterans, but guys who are a little bit older, combined with some fringe senior roster guys is kind of the way that the club's been using them for the last few years, and
Mm-hmm.
it's turned out really well. I was actually thinking about one of the goals from 2 weeks ago where I think it was McScorley scored on a beautiful kind of like volley on a cross or a pass in from outside the 18-yard box, and midair he just connected, and it was beautiful. No, they've been fun to watch, and I've been able to catch them this year, but I haven't been able to see them quite as much as I did last year, unfortunately. But second in the Western Conference, that's nothing to shake a stick at. That's really impressive.
It is, especially because, take into account, I don't have the numbers, but they were off to a rough start in the beginning. They were pretty low in the table, a lot of losses, several draws. So to end up second in the West is really impressive. They've been number one in the power rankings from the official MLS Next Pro press team, I suppose you could say, putting those out. And I think it's well deserved. Here are just a few stats to kind of give you guys an idea of what you might see in a St. Louis City 2 match. These guys, I think Julian nailed it, that there are, pressing is a part of this team. But, Murphy does have them being a little bit multiple. So if you want to say, is City 2 kind of like the Carnell days or like the Hackworth days? I would say they're a perfect hybrid of the two. If you want to find just a middle ground, I think that's definitely what they are. They are second in the league for goal differential. They're tied with Philly. So even though they're second in the West, second in the league with goal differential. So that's a pretty cool thing. They are second to least in pass percentage, second to Philly. Again, if we're going to talk about playing styles, you can kind of think of what Philadelphia likes to do and what St. Louis likes to do. And I like to look at these two teams because it's almost like looking at what the system would be in a vacuum for, it feels like the sporting director has a little bit more control of the two team. Like they're playing pragmatically, like the club wants the team to kind of grow up playing through the academy. So I don't know if that's always true, but I think that's a generally a true thing to kind of think of when you're going into a two-team game. St. Louis City is third to last in pass attempts. So not many pass attempts, just like the first team. Fourth best in goals allowed and fourth best in shots allowed. That's the least amount of goals allowed, least amount of shots allowed from the defense, and they're second in clean sheets. And that's in the entire league. That's not just in the West. So they're doing well. Clearly a solid defense. Clearly showing signs that they're a lot like the senior team and playing the type of style that St. Louis City wants from their team. And also just kind of showing that I looked at the general stats. They aren't super strong or super weak in any stat. So I found that interesting. I don't know how you guys feel about that, Stu. Does any of that ring true with what you've seen with City 2 or any thoughts on how the team plays from you?
Well, one thing, slight segue from that I think is interesting is how the club really uses City 2 as kind of an experimental ground. We saw Kajima playing right back a few weeks ago, which was interesting.
Yeah.
Seeing Pedro come back, and I mean, he's not with the first team, but I honestly didn't expect him to come back with City 2 and play, and he's playing hard. He was signing kits and autographs for some people after match 2 weeks ago. We also missed our friend Owen O'Malley was on the bench for Tacoma Defiance
I forgot.
last week, and actually trying to find his stats. I know he's played some matches this year. Wish the guy well. 12 matches this year, 3 assists. So hopefully he'll get his career on track with Tacoma and maybe break through into the MLS sometime.
What do you think, Julian? Any of that stuff ring true to you? Anything you want to add to how you think of CITY2 playing? I love that Stu just added that it is totally a trialing ground to kind of get guys minutes, try them in different positions. Tyler Pierce has been moving around the field a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's valuable when the team is definitely playing for something. I think it's a different vibe when you want to say it's experimental, just for minutes, development. And, the team was, languishing at the bottom of the table, wasn't really in the playoffs. But the fact that they're at the top, they're kind of one of the better teams in the league, kind of is a testament to the culture of the club. And it kind of means more, and I think those experiences, especially for a lot of the players on the team, the beginning of their careers, to have those experiences of, dang, I'm only like 20, 19 years old, just getting my feet wet. And look, I'm on this team where we're competing. It's not the highest level in the country, but, we're still competing. We're still getting things done. So I think in the end, that'll definitely serve those guys well, especially for the ones that end up coming up to City eventually to the first team.
Very well said. I'm going to rush through a few other stats just to kind of let you guys know that, like Mekhi Joyner is second in the Golden Boot race with 16 goals. Pareba at Chicago Fire 2 has 18. So he's in first place. But Mekhi's also third in the league in shots on target. He has 6 PKs, as does Pareba. So those, the PK haters in the Golden Boot race, like, well said, but at least the guy ahead of him is in the same position. Matt's Baker, we're going to pepper in a few of his tweets throughout the show. He mentioned that Joyner averaged 1 goal every 111 and 3/4 minutes. It's the best goal scoring rate for those in the top 5 of the Golden Boot race. Another weird stat I found, McSorley is third in headed shots. There's a fun one for you. And as Stu brought up, he looked good in that 1 goal. I absolutely agree. That was really impressive from him. But he's really come into his own in the end of this season. So I'm excited to see how he starts in the next one. The big news with them, there's 2 things that we got to cover here. One is that it's really cool in MLS Next Pro. The top 4 seeds get to choose their opponent out of the bottom 4 seeds from the West in this case. And the East gets to do the same thing. So for City's sake, Coach Murphy was joined by Gabriel Mikina, the center back and captain of the team, to do this pick. Gabriel was the only player that joined in this stream on X. But it was cool that they streamed this. Each team got to choose their opponent. They would talk to the chooser. They would talk to the opponent that was chosen and ask kind of why they did it and what they expect. And so when it came St. Louis City's turn, they chose, my goodness, I'm blanking so badly, LAFC 2. Vancouver had already been chosen by the number 1 seed, which is North Texas. So we chose LAFC. The other options were Ventura County and Houston. And Bobby Murphy, this is a home game for City. Coach Bobby Murphy chose them based on travel, because travel is going to be a major issue in the playoffs. And so he wanted to knock out one of the teams that were further away. Vancouver was taken. He chose LAFC next. Gabriel Mikina said that the players were consulted on who they wanted to play. So maybe the players wanted LAFC. We don't know that. The game time for this is Sunday, 10:20 at 2 p.m. And Stu, you mentioned the attendance thing. Did you want to talk some more about it before we move on?
Yeah, so against Tacoma Defiance, it was kind of a fan appreciation day. City does such a great job with CITY2 and kind of making certain matches every year, not spectacles, but events.
Well said.
And must attend. And they opened up, I believe, the all 4 stands, not the second level, but the total attendance was 12,000, which is a record, and it won't be broken probably until next year when CITY2 breaks it again. The previous record was 10,000 set by CITY2 last year. No, just absolutely fantastic. Perfect weather, perfect day. You really can't ask for more from such a great soccer town like St. Louis.
And I want to add one thing, and that is that not only was that an MLS Next Pro record of all time, for that weekend, it was the highest attended game that wasn't an MLS game in the men's soccer world. So that doesn't include women's soccer. I think they would have gotten beat if we included that. But how cool is that? Including USL Championship, League One, League Two. Do we include Nissan in this, Stu? I don't know. But second, that weekend in all of men's soccer that wasn't an MLS game. That's a massive thing. And who knows, in the playoffs, maybe we'll make another run for it. I don't want to say that that's not possible. I would love to see massive crowds, but I agree. It's not a spectacle. It's something that is a really fun environment. It's very kid friendly. If you love St. Louis FC, you get a little bit of that vibe in there, something I always say. And so I really enjoyed that. So I hope you will go check it out if you haven't. If you're complaining about ticket prices, here's a way to see some soccer in St. Louis, get some good food, get in that beautiful stadium, and have some fun with some St. Louis soccer fans. It's one of the best ways to do it in the city. You're listening to Flyover Footy on the Big 550 KTRS. Thank you for joining us. Now we're going to talk a little bit about St. Louis City. I think let's start with the game. Let's start about talk a little tiny bit about the not LAFC game, the Houston Dynamo game. It was a 3-0 win for St. Louis. Let's just take some simple takeaways here from each of you. Stu, let's start with you, and then Julian, if you want to get something ready, just an observation from the Houston game. Just to start with, if you want to touch on this, go ahead, Stu, and go right into whatever your take is. But one of the highlights of the night was the Tifo and the zombie, the Berkey zombie was super well done. I thought the animation on the video was amazing. I thought the artwork was incredible and well presented. What'd you think about it? I mean, Stu, you're the Tifo expert on the podcast today for sure.
Well, I'm one of the people who, does the Tifo work for the St. Louligans, and each supporters group kind of has their own group, so each have their own kind of captains. No, obviously we were really excited about it. Thought it turned out well. I mean, previous week, Punks did an awesome Tifo that just chills when the theme was played on the keyboard and they rolled out the Michael Myers from Halloween, City Never Russ. Fantastic tifo that. So it's they're always fun to work, and you want to hype people up, and it was especially neat to hear after the match that Berkey was excited to see it. And Zombie Berkey, Jamie Toon did a great job on that artwork, and of course No Goal Patrol, those guys made some of the artwork on their towels that they throw around. So just cool culture there, and of course, shout out to Tom Franklin for helping inspire that chant last year. So all around, it was a fun day.
Absolutely. Did you want to share any thoughts from the game itself? There was a lot of takeaways. I'll let you choose. Sorry, I don't want to speak.
Oh yeah, no, just it was one part that was just really cool was seeing Nerwinski, how after he scored. How excited he was. Obviously, that was the third goal, and the game was pretty much wrapped up at that point. But still, I mean, the guy works his tail off, and to see him score and see how excited he was, that was just really the cherry on top of what a perfect match.
It was indeed. I completely agree. I think we were all rooting for him and just so freaking happy for him. Julian, what did you think about that game? Anything stand out to you?
Yeah, I got to catch parts of it. I was a little busy. I was catching up on some readings this week, but I think the one important thing to remember is I think Houston's really good. For me, I think Houston, in terms of aesthetic and watching, I think they're one of my top 5 teams to watch in MLS. Ben Olsen's a really good coach. I feel like every time they play Houston too, it's pretty tight. I wouldn't ever say it's ever one team is completely dominating. Always has a little bit of everything. And I definitely 100% agree with the Nerwinski thing. Anytime, I remember always being the press conferences, anytime Jake would come in, just the ultimate professional. I never really think he gets too high, gets too low. He's really good at kind of just putting things in perspective. He's had his moments where there's times where, arguably some goals have been his fault. But he's always pretty big about like owning up to it. And for the most part, especially, and I can't help but remember last season, there was a time where for at least a couple months, like he did not put a foot wrong. Like he probably wasn't giving you 8 out of 10s every single time, but he was giving you at least a 6, a 7, solid performances.
Mm-hmm.
He only ever really lost his starting spot due to like a rotation. I think it was like the San Jose game last year, and he just was unlucky to never get it back. So yeah, it was super nice seeing him get a goal, and that reaction said everything.
Absolutely. I'll just say I think the big change in this game, specifically this game, was looking at having Betcher up top with Klaus, rather than having Alm on the right. That was kind of the change out, and it did change our formation. Betcher didn't play as like a right winger. It looked more like a 4-2-2-2. So we had Hartle and Teukert kind of as the 10s, Klaus and Betcher up top, Leuven JGR as the 6s, and then we know what the back 4 was. So, I thought that was really nice. Do I miss Alm when he's not there? Absolutely, I do. But he's injury prone, at least this year. He just came back from an injury. And so giving him a break honestly felt good. I was ready for Betcher to start over Klaus just to kind of see like what's the difference, because Betcher didn't do anything wrong. He didn't deserve to necessarily lose his spot, if you want to put it that way. I don't think that's how it went. I think Klaus got healthy and he's a special player in a lot of ways, and he came in over Betcher, which is what you'd expect if a DP player comes back in MLS. But Betcher was scoring goals, actual goals, and people are starting to complain about goals from Klaus. And so I was ready to see a switch over to give Betcher a start and maybe have Klaus come in. Well, they found a way to get Betcher and Klaus on the field at the cost of Alm, and it worked in this game. So what's there to complain about? So that was just something I noticed. I'm curious how they'll go forward. It looks like Alm got another knock. So now the decision is kind of made for Hackworth for now. But it gets us thinking maybe for next year, which I think is what I want to go into next. I want to talk a little bit before we do like a starting 11, just to kind of give you guys an update on maybe how we would do things. I want to talk about City in general. Like I said, we have Julian here who can give us a fresh look, and I want to go through this thought process that I've been having lately. And it starts with negativity, and then it goes, and we have some positivity from Matt Baker, as ever, but this is some of his most convincing stuff I've ever seen. It convinced me, and so I want to give you guys this timeline of thought processes that I've had since League Cup, and then I want to get your guys' reactions, Stu and Julian. So let's start with from MLS Stat, at MLS Stat on X. He puts out really good work, really good stats, really good like visual stats. And it's just this simple table that has XG conceded on one part of the table, and on the bottom of the table is XG. So how many goals you're expected to give up and did give up, and then the XG of what you could have scored. And so it shows that, St. Louis didn't do well defensively. And so they're in the quadrant with people like San Jose Quake, Austin, SKC, which makes me feel a little bit better, and Dallas. So just like teams that didn't defend well this year. And I think as St. Louis fans, we know this, right? We feel this to the core of our bones. We have gotten some wins at the end of since League's Cup in MLS, and they feel really good. It feels like we're getting back on our feet. We have a good lineup. We invested in our roster. But Santiago Beltran says that, in September after LA Galaxy, winning versus LA Galaxy has been unlocked, and Seattle and LAFC are the only Western Conference opponents City hasn't won against. Hartle 1, Royce 0, he says after that game. And here's the other part of that. City is only a draw and 7 losses versus LAFC and Seattle. So what does this say? It says, yes, at the end of this season, we were able to beat some decent teams. We were able to beat the teams at the bottom of the table. We still lost to LAFC, and we lost to Seattle pretty badly earlier in the season. So are we actually fixed, right? That's one question. That's more negativity, feeling like we still haven't done it. Yes, there is the LA Galaxy win that is super inspiring, but it was without Puig. Ricky Puig wasn't there. LA Galaxy didn't look right to me. But it doesn't matter. That's still a top team, one of the best teams in the league this year. But I still have this just thought, like maybe we're not over the hump. Maybe we haven't figured it out. What's the problem? And we'll talk about that too. But here is Matt Baker giving us that light at the end of the tunnel. I was convinced by this. He says, for context, for how well St. Louis City has played since Teukert, Hartle, Betcher, etc. arrived this summer, and how well positioned they are for 25. He says, All for City is one of 8 teams in MLS to win 4 more games in their last 7 and are tied for 7th for most points in that time. So tied for 7th is pretty darn good. It's a massive improvement on what we were. And he says, and it isn't just beating up on the bottom tier teams. 2 of those wins came against playoff teams. In fact, 2 of 3 total wins City has this year against playoff teams have come in their last 7. So, it's just, I'm just giving you like this timeline of my emotions with St. Louis City and how convinced I was, how sad I was. If we were to see this to start out the season next year, I think we'd all be very, very happy, much more happy than we have been this season. But Stu, how does that strike you? I don't know what let's hear about your timeline of emotions and how you feel about the team currently.
My timeline emotions is, I'm feeling positive right now. I think we're ending the season on a positive note. You never say that any match is a free hit, but that LAFC won away a couple weeks ago, and I was talking about it last week. To me, that's as close as you get to probably, you play for a draw in that situation, which probably a little controversial take there. But I think we played really well against a really good Houston team that doesn't concede a lot. I know our XG conceded is still high, but XG, I'm not a fully converted believer to that.
Mm-hmm.
Overall, we're trending, I believe, in a good direction. Just seeing the chemistry that's kind of being built between, especially on our attacking options, and thinking about how a guy like Celio is going to improve this lineup when we possibly will shift a guy like Thor to the bench full time. It's exciting. And we really need to focus on the defensive aspect of the side next year. But offensively, I don't think anyone can argue with the potential being there for a really powerful offense.
Hackworth's a massive part of this conversation as well. But Julian, let's bring that fresh perspective. I've been dying to hear. What do you think about City as they stand now, or maybe even what they've been since League's Cup?
Yeah, I think since League's Cup, it's obviously been a different team. As we've seen all season, though, and I really don't think League's Cup changed it that much. Like, the defense just hasn't been there. I think a big part of that was, last year Parker was so good. And I think to an extent, he was so good that you kind of forgot how old he was.
Mm-hmm.
And you kind of just didn't anticipate the drop-off. And, the fall-off was pretty hard. I also feel like, honestly, the only consistent defender, the guy who was almost always in the lineup was Totland.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of just felt like the defense was always shifting and changing. And as soon as, a couple guys, the 4 guys would get a couple games in together, something would happen, an injury, rotation, whatever. There was never any consistency. And then simply sometimes it's just the goals that they would concede would just kind of like mind-boggling. Like, are you serious? Like, how did that just happen? Very rarely do I think they conceded a goal where, like, well, what are you going to do? It's just like a spectacular goal or whatever. But I do agree that the offense has, throughout the whole season, I think has been pretty consistent. Yeah, a couple stretches they're not doing so great. But especially since the new arrivals in the summer, like, they've been doing really, really good. I think a lot better than anyone could have expected. I know everyone was kind of excited about them and thought that they'd be pretty good, but to see how well they've gelled with the team so far, I don't think that was expected. And then, yeah, that's the one thing I think a lot of people forget is, like, how good people like Celio and even Ostrak. Like, Ostrak he was really coming into his own in that center mid position. He was doing so good.
Yeah.
But yeah, the most exciting one for me is definitely Celio. He was on fire over the summer, and then had that injury. But yeah, I think definitely they need to sort out the center back situation, because even Nielsen probably is the best center back at the club when healthy. But when is he ever healthy, honestly? Like, he's
Yeah.
always injured. He's just not reliable. And that's not something you want in your center back, especially your best center back.
Yeah. I would actually argue with you just a little bit, is I think actually Kessler, it's a weird thing to say because he's an MLS guy, but I think Kessler has become our best center back. Like, there are moments in, especially 1v1, where Nilsson has to run, and he pretty much takes care of business every time. So I'm really being picky here, but I just feel so comfortable when Kessler's on the job.
Yeah.
He just looks more comfortable doing it, which maybe that
Fair
means
enough.
nothing. Yeah, but I've been in love with how Kessler has been doing his job, though, is more so the point. I'm not trying to prove you wrong in any way. I'm
Yeah.
happy with both. But I agree, like, if there's going to be injury problems, see, maybe that should be looked at this offseason. Would that be one of your top positions to look for help?
Oh, yeah, definitely has to be center back, because that's one thing I didn't mention. I agree, Kessler's been really, really good. But who's going to be his partner? Who's going to be the guy that, 8 out of 10 games is going to be starting with him? Someone he can get comfortable with. Because I think so far we've had 2 years, and I think Hubert's good. I don't have any problems with Hubert, but I don't think he's at the caliber. If City wants to be in the playoffs, making a deep run, I don't think he's the guy that's going to get you there. At least not starting consistently. For like a game or two rotation, he'll probably be fine. But I don't think he's the guy that's going to get you there if he's starting like almost every single game. So I think center back is definitely the top priority for the summer.
Well, quickly, let's do one more round of conversation here. Let's talk about Hackworth, because under Hackworth, things got much better. And I mean, he had better talent to work with. So let's put that aside, though. I think let's talk about what has Hackworth done. Like, what are the best things he's done? And then what would you say he needs to solidify to keep the job? So, Stuart, let's start with you, and then we'll go to Julian.
Ooh,
What do you think? What do you think Hackler's done best, and then what do you think he should solidify to get that job if he were to want it?
I think he's improved on his substitutions from when he started. I think that was something Carnell was struggling with toward the end of his tenure. Some of the things with Carnell, you don't want to speculate, but there are maybe some locker room issues. You don't know. They're obviously butted heads with a few guys, so maybe that was an issue there. Hackworth doesn't seem to have that problem.
Yeah.
Carnell also didn't quite have the personnel that Hackworth does. So I think in some ways it's too early to tell. I don't know if Hackworth got that signature win that he wanted necessarily. Santi talked about that the other week, about him still going for that head coaching role. I like Hackworth a lot. I wouldn't be terribly disappointed. I want him to stick around the club for sure as technical director either way. But I don't think I would be disappointed if he's back as head coach. But I don't know if Lutz is going to look or aim higher for a higher pedigree coach, if that makes sense.
What do you think, Julian?
I think the most credit I could probably give Hackworth, especially because they didn't even make the playoffs. I think that would have been, if he could have made the playoffs, I think that would have been like super, super strong case for keeping the job, honestly.
Yeah.
But I think the most credit I can give him is that I don't think the wheels completely fell off. There was definitely a couple losses that are pretty heavy, not some great performances. But there were a couple of good wins, Yeah, the Galaxy one, they didn't have Pooj, but they still beat the Galaxy. Galaxy, one of the best teams in the Western Conference. But me personally, I don't think he's the guy. He's done all right, but I think, again, kind of the same thing with Hebert. If they want to get to that next level, like, I think they need a better coach. And I completely agree with what Stu said. Like, I think he does need to stick around in the club. Again, from some of the interviews I've done with players, like, he seems like a likable guy, kind of like what we were touching on earlier. Some people clash with Carnell, but Hackworth just kind of seems to be the guy that, everyone gets along with. a lot of the players still have known him since they were like teenagers. Like I think like Durkin, Vasilev, Yaro has known him for a while. So I think it's good to keep a face, a guy at the club who everyone is familiar with, comfortable with. But I don't think he should be in the position of head coach. I think if they want to make some noise next year, especially with the roster that they have right now and the improvements they're going to make, they also need to make an improvement at head coach.
Good stuff. Let's give our starting 11s. Now, we don't have a game for this weekend, but it's good to kind of keep up with what we think the best starting 11 will be. So next week or next time, we'll talk about what we think we might see against the Loons, Minnesota United. For now, let's just give ours. I'll start. I would put Berkey in goal, of course. Totland, Kessler, Nilsson, and Horn across the back. If Durkin's not back, I would put in JGR and Leuven, otherwise Durkin and Leuven. And I want to stick with the 4-2-2-2-2 for now and have Teukert and Hartl at the 10s and Betcher and Klaus as the strikers. Stu, let's go with Stu next. What would you do?
Yeah, I would do a very similar one. Some injury updates from this week. Tom Timmerman talked about and training yesterday that Alm didn't train. He has a flare-up of that hip groin injury. But the club expects he'll be available versus Loons, and Durkin's still questionable. So I think Durkin's a big question on who's playing. Durkin and Betcher are those question marks. But I had a very similar lineup: Berkey, Totland, Kessler, Nielsen, Horn, Durkin if healthy, Leuven, Teukert, Hartl, Klaus, and Betcher. But if Alm's healthy, then that makes bringing Betcher off the bench a really appealing idea.
I get that. What do you think, Julian?
Very, very similar to Stu. The only difference is I would actually, and I guess different from both of you guys, I would actually keep Reed.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I like him. I think he's pretty explosive sometimes. He has a knack for being a little flashy, which I like.
Yeah.
I definitely think in 2025, if you can get a game with Reed and Celio on the left, that'd be pretty exciting. I don't know. I just think he offers something different that could make a difference sometimes. Maybe get a little counterattack going. I don't know. I just have a feeling with Reed. I just like him more. But yeah, Durkin, Leuven, Teukert, Hartl, Becker, Klaus.
Yeah. Totally agree. Really fun comments there. I love the Celio and Reed thoughts. Yes, absolutely. That would be, quite the fun left side there. Stu, anything you want to bring up now? I know we will talk in depth about Minnesota, but you might have wanted to bring up some stuff about them or anything else before we go to USMNT?
Do we want to talk a little bit about off-season dates or hold off on that a little bit later?
Oh, no. Name them off real quick and say a little something, and then we'll move on to USMNT. That's perfect. Thank you.
All right. So MLS announced some of their off-season dates to keep track of, keep in mind that are coming up. November 27th is the first one, and that's the deadline to exercise options, team options. And with City, some of the guys who have team options are Durkin, Vasilev, Ben Lunt, Jake Nerwinski, Bloom, Kojima, Klein, Reed, Watts, and Wenzel. And I think we'll see a lot of those guys get picked up. December 11th is the expansion draft. San Diego FC is coming into the league, and we are not exempt, even though we partook recently. So we will be able to probably protect 12 players if it's the same format as 2 years ago when we joined. December 12th is free agency beginning, and December 20th is the MLS Super Draft. And smashed in there is going to be the MLS Board of Governors meeting. They always get together the weekend of the MLS Cup final. So pay attention to some of the things that might happen over that period of time in regards to something like the U.S. Open Cup.
Good stuff. Thanks for bringing that up, Stu. That and the injury report. You're bringing in the really important stuff, honestly. So filling in for Matt Baker there very nicely. Appreciate that. We are, pardon me, I'm going to edit this out. We are Flyover Footy. You're listening to us on the Big 550 KTRS. We are presented by Noble Ice Vineyards. Thank you for joining us very quickly. We don't have much time, but I want to touch on this just a little bit for the radio folks before we talk about this more in depth on the wind down. USMNT does have, it's an international break, as I mentioned earlier. And so USMNT will be playing Panama and Mexico on this international break under the new head coach, Mauricio Pochettino. So this is a massive, massive ordeal. We get to see Pochettino in action for the first time, his chosen roster, his chosen formation, his chosen way to implement these players and defeat the opposition. So I'm going to read off the roster and we'll give just some thoughts on the roster. And then we'll get out of here. But join us on the wind down if you want to hear a little bit more St. Louis centric commentary about the national team. And Julian just happens to have quite a bit more knowledge than any of us have about the Mexico team. So he will key us in on that just a little bit. So the goalkeepers, even Ethan Horvath, Patrick Schulte is the first St. Louisan of note on this roster. Zach Steffen, Matt Turner. Defenders, Marlon Fosse's back. Christopher Lund from Serie B. Mark McKenzie now playing in the French league. Tim Ream, the second St. Louisan on this roster. Anthony Robinson, Miles Robinson, Joe Scally, Austin Trusty. Midfielders, Brendan Aronson, Gianluca Busio, Johnny Cardoso, Weston McKinney, Aiden Morris, Yunus Musa, Malik Tillman. Forwards, Fuller Balogun, Ricardo Pepi, Christian Pulisic, Josh Sargent, Timothy Weah, Haji Wright. Now, there have been changes. I'll say those real quick. One is, Balogun is out on injury. Who else? Cardoso is out on injury. And one
Weah.
other. Weah, thank you. Weah is out on his injury. So we will be having, they're bringing in Tessman, Vasquez, and Zendejas as replacements. So, Stu, comments. We got to talk about St. Louis shortly. 3 St. Louisans on this roster. What do you think?
Well, I'm obviously excited about the St. Louis guys. I'm a Fulham guy, so I'm excited about the Fulham connections there. And one guy who I'm really excited to see and happy for him is Marlon Fosse.
Yeah.
He's playing for Standard Liège now in Belgium. He is a fantastic guy. He comes from Fulham's academy, so that's how I know about him. Battled through a lot of injuries over the course of his young career. He's still only 24 years old, I believe. Lost 2 or 3 seasons totally through injury. So he's a right back. He is exciting when he's on his game, and when he scores, he does, I believe, a backflip or a front flip. I can't remember which one. So he's one that I'm selfishly excited to see hopefully do well.
Absolutely. Julian, we only have a minute or two, but give us a thought either on Pochettino or this roster, and then we'll go more deep on the wind down.
Yeah, I think obviously, as we all know, Pochettino's a big get.
Yeah.
Out of all the managers available, I think the only one you would probably have wanted over him was Klopp. That was a little ambitious, honestly. But out of anyone he could have gotten, he was the best one. The Federation, they win and they got him. So, I mean, can't really complain about that.
Yeah. The practical choice based on what we needed out of a coach for these players. And I'm loving the fact that everyone is mentioning intensity. Mm-hmm. That's something we've needed. So thank you so much for joining us here on the Flyover Footy on the Big 550 KTRS. Again, we're presented by Noble Ice Vineyards. Please get out and check that vineyard out and have some of their wines. I know you guys have indulged at the stadium, so do the same out at their winery in this beautiful time of year in St. Louis. Again, thanks for joining us. Enjoy the national break. Maybe take a break. Maybe watch the USA games. Maybe you're traveling. Enjoy it no matter what you choose to do. Again, thanks for listening. We'll talk to you guys next time. See ya.
Go City.
Okay. Stu, do you want to hang around, or you heading out tonight?
No, I got meetings in the morning, so I'm going to pass that.
Thanks for doing this, man. Massive help. Thanks for keeping me on track and remembering that stuff I forgot.
Yeah, good chatting, Julian. Good to see you as always. I'll see you guys soon.
Take care, Stu. Good night.
We usually grab a beer. I'm going to grab a beer real quick and come right back. Sound okay?
All right.
We'll get going. Okay, we have a silly tradition, and so I'll open the show and then I'll just bring us into the wind down.
All right.
I'm really excited for this part. I'm
Me too.
I'm half glad I couldn't fit it in the regular show so we could actually dive a little deeper. So here we go. Welcome everyone to the wind down. I already opened the can already. Usually Matt opens the can on mic, so you get a fake one today. I just couldn't help myself. I wasn't thinking straight that I'm the only one here with a beer. Or did you grab a beer, Julian?
I did not.
Okay, well, in honor of Matt, I have an O'Cats Oktoberfest from Irvin Chestnut. I've been forgetting to order it and get it and bring it to my house, and I finally did it, and I'm super happy tonight with an Oktoberfest. Are you 21, Julian? I don't even know how old you are.
Not yet. Just turned 20 over the summer.
Okay, so we're staying legal on the podcast. This is a good thing.
I got water right here, though.
Oh, man, I've been excited to talk about this, Julian. And so let's continue with the national team. Obviously, this is the wind down. Hopefully, you've listened to the other part of the show already. And you're a goalkeeper. So let's just start with the national team goalkeepers, because, I mean, this is a thing to talk about. It's kind of troubling right now, in my opinion. What do you think?
It is, especially because, at least for me growing up, I never got to see like Friedel, Casey Keller. I was too young for that. But for me, it was Tim Howard. Tim Howard was the guy.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I remember the 2014 World Cup, watching the game against Belgium. Like, I watched that live. And at the time, I was 10 years old. I just started playing goalkeeper. And I was like, oh, my God, this is the American goalkeeper? This guy's crazy. So, yeah, he was definitely, like, one of the idols of mine growing up. Especially, my Mexican heritage was also Ochoa, but it was nice to have Tim Howard.
Has to be.
And then, I kind of had like a little downward slump. It's one of those things where a guy kind of gets hot for a bit, kind of takes the mantle, and then for one reason or another, he just kind of falls off. Like, one thing I am glad to see Stefan back in. I think he, for a minute, it was like, oh, wow, we have our goalkeeper for like the next 10 years,
Yeah.
And then he just kind of fell off the face of the earth. I think he got an injury, if I remember correctly. And
like
then,
kind of a series of injuries in a way, starting even at Man City. So
especially, he got that move to Man City, and that's like, oh my gosh, like, this guy must be, he's going to be the next level. He lost his spot. Matt Turner came in. He had a good couple years. Then he started making a couple of errors. Then it became like, like who's going to be the guy now? So yeah, it's an interesting situation. I do like Schulte. I get St. Louis native, but he plays for a really, really good Columbus team.
Yeah.
And I think if you do watch a couple of games, like, as good as Columbus are, because of how risky they are in the back, there are a couple of times that they just kind of give it up in the back, and it's kind of like a 1v1 or like a quick transition, and he saves them,
Yeah.
He kind of bails them out pretty often. So,
yeah.
You got to give him credit for that.
They ask a lot of him. They
really do.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he steps up almost every time.
Yeah.
Very rarely. I think I've seen like a couple times live Columbus games, and very rarely will you see a goal where he just like has like a weird moment. Like, there was the one last week against Inter Miami, where like he came out, he kind of fell over the defender. It must have just been a miscommunication, but for the most part, he's pretty solid, and he's still really young, so he could be one guy for the future, or for right now. We don't know yet, but we'll see.
There's Arsenal rumors. I mean, I don't know how we feel about that at this point, since we've seen a lot of massive national team players go to massive clubs and get loaned out over and over, and it becomes nothing, right?
Yeah. I think he definitely needs. I think Schulte eventually needs to take that jump over to Europe.
Yeah.
But I agree. Like, we don't want another like Matt Turner situation. I mean, he basically went to Arsenal for nothing. Like, he just wasted his time there, honestly.
Yeah.
And I still think, honestly, like, the bias against American players is still pretty prevalent, especially in England. And it's just not worth it, especially with a World Cup coming up on home soil. Like, it's just, I don't know. I think for a player, I would imagine you wouldn't even want to deal with that. You just want to go somewhere where you're going to be given a fair shot and you're going to be playing at a better level. So hopefully he gets that move wherever
Yeah,
that may be.
it almost felt like Turner got more of a shot at Arsenal than he did at Nottingham Forest. Now those guys can't mess around with a mistake because they don't have much margin on losses. So I understand that, but also it felt like the American bias was a little bit there at Nottingham Forest. They kept bringing in other goalkeepers who had lower save percentages than him. But to be fair, they made less mistakes out of the back. So maybe that's the answer as a goalkeeper. I don't know how you feel about that.
I think that's more like, I don't even think that's like them just not liking Turner. I think that's just like a club thing because I think Nottingham Forest, they brought I think when they got promoted, they brought like a whole new team basically. So
Yeah, it's true.
And I think this summer too, they brought like a bunch of players. So I think it's just like
I think they're on like 4 goalkeepers since he joined the team.
Definitely.
All right, man. I appreciate that. Do you have a favorite of these 4? I don't know if we talked about Horvath, but he's playing for that Welsh club. I'm blanking on it, but he's
Cardiff
playing in the
City.
Thank you, Cardiff.
I think still at this moment, you kind of still have to go with Turner, which I don't mind. I know he's had his fair share of mistakes recently with the national team, but he has been the number one. He just played at the last World Cup. And I really do think you have to stick with him, especially when you're playing against Mexico, an opponent he's very familiar with. And especially you have to consider they're playing in Mexico. Even though sometimes when they play in the U.S., they're basically playing in Mexico. I think it's way different playing in an American stadium versus a Mexican stadium. So I think having someone that's been there and done that is helpful.
I agree. That's well said because I don't know what stadium they're going to. Do you remember?
I'm pretty sure they're going to Estadio Akron. Shout out Chivas. Guadalajara.
Okay. Yep. I appreciate you knowing that because I forgot to look it up. I'm with you. I do think they should play one goalkeeper one game, another goalkeeper the other game. And I'm leaning towards Schulte with Panama, but let's say Stefan or Horvath outplay him. Just play the best goalkeeper that game and then give, the more veteran player in Matt Turner in Mexico. I completely agree. I mean, he's been with the team when they've won in the Nations League, you know what I mean, against Mexico. He's seen some really filthy games, so he's the one to go with.
Yeah.
What about, the defenders? We've got Marlon Fossey at Standard Liège, who had a really good game in the last set of friendlies under the temporary coach. Christopher Loon plays at Palermo in Serie B. Mark McKenzie, like I said, moved to a team in France and has been starting every single game. I want to say that's Strasbourg, but that might be Wiley.
Toulouse, I think.
Toulouse, you're right. Yeah. Toulouse, thank you. Tim Ream now at Charlotte, which is sad, but it's a thing. That's fine. Anthony Robinson at Fulham with Liverpool rumors. That's been fun. Miles Robinson at FC Cincinnati. Joe Scally at Mönchengladbach, and Austin Trusty just moved from Sheffield United, where he wasn't playing, to Celtic as the second American center back at Celtic, which is interesting. But Cameron Carter-Vickers is injured right now, so it's working out. Austin's getting lots of time. Anything stand out to you about the defenders?
Honestly, I really like, obviously, Anthony Robinson. I think he's super solid. There's a reason why he's getting linked with Liverpool, one of the best left backs in the Premier League. He's solid,
Yeah.
And he's so fast, and he's always attacking, but he always tracks back. You almost never catch him, trying to catch up to a forward or something. He's always in position when he needs to be. I think Scally kind of, in a way, had to get thrown into it because for so long, Dest was the guy. And then out of nowhere, it's like, okay, well, you need to step up now. This is your time. And it was kind of like it was a rude awakening. I definitely think those first couple of games were rough on him. But then, over the summer, I'm not going to forget it. He locked up Vinny. He locked up Vinny Jr.
That's right.
Did his thing.
Massive.
That was huge. That was a really good game. And I think as he's been playing more games, starting more games, I think we've seen him grow more comfortable. I still think when Dest comes back, he was probably going to get his spot back. But for now, I think Scally's doing all right. Um, I'm a little worried about the center backs, honestly. I think Reem, as good as he's been, I think it's very unrealistic to assume he's going to make it to the World Cup, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah, I agree.
Carter's Vickers is the next best guy, I think. Obviously, he's injured right now. Miles Robinson, like, I'm not anti MLS by any means,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't know. I just don't really see the hype about him. He's all
Yeah.
right. I don't really think he's great. Um, and then it's kind of like one of those situations where like Trusty kind of barely has been playing in his own clubs. McKenzie, in the times that we've seen him, he's been all right, but again, just don't know if he's going to be that guy for the national team. He just got a new move. Maybe that'll kind of help his form. Maybe he'll perform better, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm a little worried. Kind of like with City, I'm a little worried about the center back, if I'm being honest.
I think it's well said. I want to just say that I think Miles Robinson is pretty solid. And strangely, I think he might be the most solid center back on this list outside of Reem, who hasn't faded yet. I'd say Miles Robinson's the next best one. And I'm just saying that like all around, like he's just so athletic. And I would say he makes the least mistakes defensively of all of them. He's nothing special in distribution, that's for sure. But if you put someone like Tim Ream next to him, no problem.
He's all right. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I want to say, pardon me, Miles Robinson is really good. And you just have a thought that 2026 is still 2 seasons away. And Miles is on a short 1 or 2 year contract with Cincinnati. 2 years. But it can be shortened. So what if Miles goes somewhere in the next transfer window in Europe? Would that change your mind if he puts in a good 1 full season somewhere on let's say a top 5 or 6 league? Would that change your mind about him as being maybe one of the top 2 or 3 center backs?
I mean, probably, most likely. But then again, like you touched on there, he's a really good defender, but he does lack on the distribution. And again, maybe I'm thinking too long term, but right now it's fine because we do have Reem. Thank God we have Reem.
Yeah.
But what happens when Reem's not there? And then he kind of has to pick up the slack a little bit for that. I don't think he's the guy for that. But I mean, like for games like against Mexico, who have big aerial strikers, and that's kind of their thing, I think Robinson is an amazing guy to have because when it comes to like the down and dirty, I think he's more than capable of holding his own for that.
Yeah, and there were comments today, and I think it's a little bit too soon. It was like Aronson and Sargent right next to each other talking about, someone was like, what kind of style are you going to play? And Aronson was like, we're going to build out of the back. Having the ball is important to Pochettino. He keeps saying that. So he will be practical. If we need to kick it, we will. But we want to play out of the back. And then Sargent was like, we haven't really talked tactics yet. Tomorrow's tactics day, so I don't know if that's true. So he basically tempered expectations. It was a very veteran move from Sargent. I liked that. But against Mexico, it's like, probably press the hell out of them and kick the ball long. You know what I mean? That seems to be working typically, and I imagine Pochettino will catch on to that. Last thing I'll say about the defenders is I'm with you. McKenzie needs an upgrade, but he's very talented. He might be the best distributor outside of Tim Ream. So if he can,
he's still kind of raw.
Yeah, if he can just clean up the mistakes, you know what I mean? He looks great. Sometimes he looks like very casual out there. Like I feel like him, like I feel about Watts sometimes, and Watts always figures it out. But sometimes I'm like, bro, like, are you trying your hardest right now? Like you just look so casual. Like let's get into this. Let's get down and dirty. McKenzie gives me those vibes, and then he'll make a mistake here and there. So if he cleans that up in France, like that's a great upgrade for him. And so if he just improves, I mean, he could be the guy going forward. This is wide open because, like you said, center backs are worrisome right now. So midfielders, Brendan Aronson is back at Leeds, but doing really well for them. They're all big fans of him again after loving him and then hating him and now loving him again. Gianluca Busio is starting every Serie A game for Venezia right now. That's awesome. Johnny Cardoso has looked good at Betis. Like we said, he's not going to be in this one, but Cardoso wasn't getting minutes after he was dead on starter at the end of last season in La Liga with Real Betis. But he's starting to get starts again. So I hope that's a good sign of the future. He was replaced by Tanner Tessman, who is getting substitute starts for Lyon in France, which is a really top club in France. They're not massive fans of him yet, but I think he hasn't found his feet on that level quite yet, to be fair. So he's just been like a defensive 6 sub for them, and I think he's been fine. Hasn't been incredible. He hasn't. Once he gets comfortable in a league, he starts pinging balls everywhere, and people are going to like him once he figures that out. So there's Tessman. Weston McKennie, against all odds for the 3rd year in a row. He's won a spot at Juventus again.
It seems like they always want to get rid of him, and
Yeah.
like they just can't. They just can't because he just always proves them wrong.
Love it. What a great story Weston McKennie is at Juventus. And
Sometimes
of course,
I think he just likes it because I think he could easily get a move somewhere else. I think he just likes the toxicity or something. It must make him play better. I don't even know.
No, I saw a joke about that where it's like Italian coaches are so good that they know that McKennie's going to come in overweight and he's not going to try. And to get him to play his best soccer, you take away his parking space, his locker. You tell him he's going to he's not part of the plan. And then the dude gets in shape and becomes the best player on the pitch.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Not the best player, but in the starting 11 every single week. It's been fun to watch. Aiden Morris got a move to it starts with an M, Middlesbrough. He plays as a 6. British fans love this man. He's a destroyer, and he's made the adjustment pretty well. He looks like a destroyer. He's going to play that role, I think, for USMNT. And he's showing that he can do it on the championship level at least. So that's been good. Yunus Musa, a stunner. I mean, you got to love him. He's always been best for the national team, more than his club team. But he seems to like it at AC Milan. The coach seems to like him and want him to be a future, starter for him. He's a spot starter. He's looking fine there, right? Malik Tillman is the last one who's looking amazing at PSV on loan from Bayern Munich still somehow. So, all right, I've said my piece. Midfielders, what do you think about these guys?
I think it's pretty solid. Obviously super bummed about Giovanni Reina. Wish, like so many players in the history of soccer, I just wish that guy can stay healthy. But I think it's pretty solid. McKinney's coming in, good form. I think we already know it's probably going to be McKinney and Musa starting in the midfield. They're probably going to play the 4-2-3-1. If I had to guess, it's probably going to be both of them. But at the same time, it makes me kind of bummed out for guys like Aiden Morris. I really like Aiden Morris. I really enjoyed watching Columbus games. I just love Wilfred Nancy first off. I think he's a great coach. But Morris, again, kind of like with Schulte, I think with Morris, they asked so much of him. Like in the Columbus system, he kind of did everything. And he very rarely put a pass wrong. He's the guy who'd go make that crunching tackle and then make that cross-field pass, that little diagonal.
Yeah.
He's kind of an all-rounder, honestly. I think he's a really hard worker.
He had to add that to his arsenal, you know what I mean? But yeah. Nancy did that with like it helped him get there.
Yeah. And then I've seen all over Twitter just like how the tweets of the Middlesbrough fans saying like how good this guy is and oh my god, we love him so much. So I'm really happy he's making a difference and an impact in Europe.
Me too.
And Malik Tillman, he's also one of those guys where like he shows flashes, but it just sometimes doesn't come together for him. But I think inevitably it will. And I think now that Reyna's out injured, like this is kind of his shot.
I agree.
This isn't his, his first rodeo with the national team anymore. He's been in a couple camps. He's been involved for a while. So I think his time is coming. Maybe, hopefully it'll be this window where he finally has his game. The Tillman game that finally puts him on the map of the national team and in the starting 11. But if not, it's definitely coming soon. I can definitely feel it with him.
Me too. And he's been one that's been better with club than he's been with country. Opposite of Musa, in my opinion. So, he's looked great with PSV. I think what's been fun to see is PSV has gotten frustrated with him and benched him for, I think, effort or like making too big of mistakes. I'm not sure which. PSV seems pretty hardcore. That's why they're the best in their league. right now. But you know, I think he's learned some things there, and I hope that translates to the national team in this case. I'm with you. This is his chance. He's got to
Yeah.
take it now. So because Reyna's gonna get healthy, and if he ever stays healthy, Tillman's gonna have a hard time getting on the field.
Yep.
Forwards, Balogun's out. Weah is out. And so we added, let me make sure I got that right, Zendejas and Vazquez, Brandon Vazquez. Those guys are in the forwards. We have Ricardo Pepi, Christian Pulisic, Josh Sargent, and Haji Wright as well. What do you think of the additions? Those guys are a bit hybrid, or sorry, Zendejas is a bit of a hybrid, right? He can be a central midfielder. He could be a winger. What do you think about his addition from Club America?
Um, as much as it pains me to say it, Zendejas has been doing really good for America.
Yeah.
He used to play at Chivas, was not performing at all. Went to like a smaller club, Necaxa in Mexico, started killing it in Liga MX. Then he went to America, and credit to him, he stepped up. Obviously, the pressure that comes with playing with a team like America in Liga MX is intense, right? And I mean, so far he's shown up. America has been very successful over the last couple of years, and Zendejas has been a big part of that. They've obviously had a lot of really good players, but he's always in and around the starting 11, doing really well. And I think I'm personally, maybe it's a little old fashioned, but I like having a left-footed right winger, or like,
Yeah.
a right-footed left winger. I think it makes a huge difference. And considering who's on the roster in this camp, I think he has a strong case to be starting on the right wing, especially with his recent form. Maybe it's a little bit more difficult in that obviously he's a late addition to the roster, but it's a new coach. Maybe ideally Pochettino's coming in like, no one's a starter. Everyone's going to have to fight for this spot. And I think Zendejas also has that element of he plays in Mexico. He knows a lot of the Mexican players, and he plays with a lot of them in America. So that familiarity might give him an edge in the starting 11. And if not, at least touching the field. Like, there's no way Zendejas does not get in that game. He has to have some type of role in that game. And I could definitely see him making an impact on that game.
I'm excited to see him getting a nod here because Pochettino is going to get eyes on him, and I'm really curious to see how Poch likes him. If we see a lot of Zendejas, I think that might be a bit damning on the previous, people in charge. But I'm glad he's getting his shot because he's a special player, and I've heard lately. He's been injured for a little bit, but right before that injury, I heard that he was one of the best people in the starting 11 at a club like Club America. That's massive, right?
Oh yeah, and that is something. Yeah, I should have probably brought up. I feel like in the national team, he definitely has not brought it.
Fair.
The Zendejas from America and the Zendejas from the national team are two completely different players. Like, he just looks awkward. It doesn't look the same. I think part of it was like the playing styles, obviously the contrast.
Yeah.
But
how do you think Zendejas is comfortable? Like, what do you think he likes to do if he had his choice?
I think he's most comfortable with strikers with strikers that are very much involved in the build-up, and honestly with a fluid system. I think at his best was with America when they had Julian Quiñones. Right now they have Henry Martin, or like Diego Valdez. But basically, like with America or Brandon Rodriguez right now, it's almost positionless. Like, if you see them play, like, Zendejas isn't just hugging the sideline. Like, he'll be on the sideline, and then you'll see him in the center of the field. You'll see him on a little bit on the left side, because those four attacking players are just combining and moving like crazy. Just 1-2 touch passes.
Yeah.
And I think that fluidity definitely benefits him a lot because he's really good in those tight spaces. But then when you come to the national team and you kind of have a forward like Pepi, who kind of just likes to stay with the last defenders, waiting for a cross or a cutback. He's not really coming deep for a pass. Balogun sometimes will come in deep, but for the most part, he's looking for the long ball to run onto. And
who he would love is Sargent, though.
Yeah.
He would do well with Sargent.
Yeah, exactly.
Did I cut you off there? I'm sorry if you were going to say that.
No, yeah, definitely. But I think it's just different styles between America and the USMNT, and obviously completely different personnel. but I think his play style just suits America so much better than the national team. But hey, who knows? Under a new coach, maybe he's feeling reinvigorated. Especially right now, a lot of people might not know, but he's kind of been had a little bit of shade thrown at him lately because he hasn't been with a U.S. team in a while, and there was talks about him going back to Mexico, and he was basically saying like, "Oh, like I would love to go back to Mexico," and like a lot of the Mexican press were like, "Bro, you wanted to be American, and like now that
Oh
USA doesn't want you anymore, now
no.
you want to be Mexican," and so people were kind of hating on him. So
Oh my
maybe that's a
God.
little motivation for him to come in and hit the ground running.
I hope so. Poor guy. I mean, it makes me a little annoyed that he was kind of saying good things about Mexico, but I understand why.
Yeah.
Um, for many reasons we shouldn't go into right now necessarily. I will never forget like Jonathan Gonzalez choosing Mexico over the United States back when he was someone who we thought was going to be insanely good. And all I wanted to do was see him in a USA Mexico game and just boo the heck out of him every single time. I was so mad that he chose Mexico. So, I understand all of these feelings and emotions. That's part of the rivalry. It's fun. So of course, 3 St. Louisans in here. Josh Sargent. I hope Sargent gets a start. I just want to say that because he's been getting injured. I think it's possible with Balogun started to do well, but Balogun has struggled so much with his current club, Monaco, and if he hadn't come back, I was starting to think that Sargent, if Pepe wasn't getting minutes, Sargent might be the best striker in the bunch. I don't know how Vasquez is doing. Actually, you might know how Vasquez has been doing. Maybe that's an argument there.
I don't think Vasquez. He's not doing that great. I really
Okay,
thought he was gonna go to Liga MX and kill it, but it's actually
me
his
too.
strike partnership that's killing it right now because he plays for Monterrey and they play 2 strikers,
Yeah.
and the other guy, he's the one that's killing it right now.
Hmm.
But yeah, I also agree. I've also seen. I haven't got to watch a lot of championship games, but just from being on Twitter, looking at stats, Sargent's having a really good start to the season, so that's definitely going to be helpful.
Yep. A good, a 3-legged race there between Pepe, Sargent, and Balogun, just because of form, not necessarily the league they play in. Form is pretty close there right
Mm.
now, the way it stands. So that's an interesting race. Panama is going to see a lot of MLS players. I think USMNT threw shade at them a little bit, whether they meant to or not, saying Panama's made it into one World Cup in the one against Russia when the U.S. didn't make it, and that was on a bit of a messed up play. So I don't know. I thought that was kind of funny that they threw that out there. I wanted to talk a little bit about Mexico, about what we might see from Mexico. Julian, clearly, you've grown up a Mexico fan. You keep up with them. So anytime I have a Mexico question, I ask you. You've been very knowledgeable today. So tell me, what do you think we'll see from Mexico, and what is the landscape of the Mexican national team right now? Because things have faded a little bit, right? I imagine Mexican fans are pretty upset right now.
Uh, really upset is like an understatement.
Fair.
It's all over the place. I think if a lot of people think the U.S. Soccer Federation sucks and is horrible, try being a Mexican fan.
Okay.
It's all over the place. This is They're kind of going through a transition period, which is really not what you want when again a World Cup is coming in under 2 years. You don't really want to be in a transition phase. We've had like 4 coaches in the last 3 years, something crazy like that.
Yeah.
And the guy that they're hiring, Vasco Aguirre, this is like his 3rd stint as the Mexican national team coach.
Oh.
He's really only coming back because he is a familiar face, and after like 3 years of hiring people that were brand new, thinking like, oh, we need new ideas, new innovation, and that didn't get us anywhere. They kind of brought somebody who they think like, oh, this guy is so experienced, so good, he's gonna be the one to lead us to the promised land. um, but again, it's kind of mixed messaging, because at the same time they're bringing back this guy that has been the coach 3 times already, but also trying to say like, oh, we're entering into a new generation of Mexican soccer. But then they're bringing an old coach, and they're still bringing basically the same roster of players as they've been bringing the last 2 years. So Mexican fans right now are really fed up with it. They're seeing right through it, and rightfully so.
Yeah.
And it's a really tumultuous time to be a Mexican player, a Mexican fan, and honestly, just like anything involved with Mexico right now. They have some good players. Vasco Aguirre is very pragmatic. He's definitely not going to come out, center backs playing out the back and everyone passing crazy. It's definitely going to be in your face, counterattacking, some long ball soccer. And Mexico is very well suited to play that way.
Agree.
They have no issues with that. They have a lot of players that are really, really good at that. So I think it's going to cause the U.S. a lot of problems, especially considering, again, they're playing in Mexico, which is a whole lot different to playing in the U.S.
Yeah, the wingers have never been a problem. Like counterattacking, wing play, that's like, boy, you're really good at it. Mexico's really good at it. But what about strikers? It's kind of been a problem lately, but I don't know. That might be settling now. Is it? Who's the guy that's in Eredivisie right now? He's been really good, right?
Yeah, that's Santi Jimenez.
Yeah.
He's not on the roster. He's not in the camp because he's actually injured right now. Again, he's also one of those guys, like a lot of the people on the U.S. team. He plays really good for his club. He has amazing form.
Yeah.
But then he comes to the national team, and it just doesn't click. It's more of a play style thing, but he just doesn't get it going. And then because of that, they kind of just result to playing with the older guys that they know will be comfortable with just the long balls and the second balls and things like that. Right now, I would anticipate.
No, go ahead.
What?
Well, do you have a favorite striker, actually? What would you choose?
Well, I think if Mexico would play to Santi Jimenez's strengths, he would clearly, above and beyond, be the best striker.
Nice.
But since they don't, and they probably won't, it would have to be, as much as it hurts me to say, it would have to be Henry Martin, the striker for America.
Yeah.
As much as I hate to say it, he's really good.
He is.
He does a lot of everything, honestly. He's the
in Leagues Cup, like when he played, Club America was like unstoppable, and then he got injured, and all of a sudden they lost a game, and everyone was like, "What?"
Yeah. But to be fair, Raul Jimenez is back in the national team. If anyone remember, a couple years ago in the Premier League, before that head injury, he was like ripping it up.
Yeah.
He hasn't really been the same since. He got the move to Fulham. He's been doing all right this season.
Did you see his goal this weekend?
I did not.
Or his assist, rather. His assist.
I did not see.
I mean, he pulled off just the most disgusting back heel. I mean, I don't know if he even saw the guy he passed it to, but if he did, even more props. I don't care if he saw him. It was gorgeous. So,
like this is the Raul Jimenez we had before that head injury. Like, oh my God, I don't even want to imagine where he would be right now, present day.
Yeah.
But kind of happy to see him back in. Maybe he'll play. He probably will, honestly, just because Mexico is so bad about just like marketing and having big names and being able to sell tickets with that. And so being able to have someone like Raul Jimenez on the poster to sell tickets is big. So getting him on the field is probably top priority. But I would also look out for his name is Germán Bertrame. He's the strike partner of Brandon Vasquez at Monterrey.
Okay.
This guy, I think he was actually born in Argentina. He's kind of like a naturalized Mexican citizen now. He's been ripping it up. He's also really good. I would say he plays really similar to Henry Martin. Very similar. So I would not be surprised if they're probably going to start with Martin by himself. But if they're tied late in the game or they're losing, I would definitely not be surprised if the first sub is to bring them on and put two strikers, because them two together, I can't even imagine. So, yeah, there's definitely a lot to look out for the U.S.
That's something fun to look forward to. Something else I've realized, I know they've been friendlies recently, but they brought in a lot of younger players. It seems like that is maybe one of the few things that they are looking to the future for and making a change, that Mexico's bringing in younger players, right?
Yeah, they have a few. which is kind of the reasoning. So they also brought back, I don't know if you're familiar with him, Andres Guardado, a guy who has been playing with Mexico for like the longest time ever.
I was gonna
I think
say,
he's like 38 right now, or
wow.
39. He's so old. Um, they brought him back solely for the leadership purposes because they have a couple new guys in the roster. Um, I don't really think they'll play that much, to be honest. I think it's more so just the experience of getting them in a camp and kind of seeing what it's like. Um, I know one guy, he's from the Sounders, Obed Vargas,
Yeah.
one of their center midfielders.
We
He just
just
got his
lost him.
first, yeah, he just got his first call up. They listed him as a defender, which I thought was interesting because for the Sounders, he's definitely a midfielder.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever seen him play as a defender. So I'm kind of interested to see what they do with that. I doubt he'll play, but he might get in against Valencia because they're playing like a friendly against Valencia. I think before the U.S. game or after.
Cool.
But yeah, I don't think you will see any new people against the USA except for Berterame. That'd probably be the only one.
Well, before we give our 11, let's say maybe one more thing about what do you think? I'm actually really interested. You said, I've already forgotten his name again. It's not Jimenez, is it? The striker that's playing in the Eredivisie?
Santi Jimenez.
Jimenez, thank you. How could they play to his strengths? So tell me that, and then tell me what you think is going to happen against the United States, and then we'll talk about our starting 11s and kind of end this one.
Yeah, so if you watch any of his goals for Feyenoord, it's always one of those. It's always one of those where it's like a quick 1-2, or he's like playing on the shoulder last defender. It's like a perfect through ball right into the space, and it's just like a first time finish. And that requires like a lot of slower build up, and honestly patience in transition. So like if you're transitioning on a counterattack, not just booting it long, but the guy with the ball kind of holding it for a little bit, and then at the last second laying it off to the striker. Because then at that point the striker is closer to the goal to where a one-touch finish is possible.
Okay.
Versus Mexico, even though sometimes they do like the transition, the counterattacks, it's more so like let's just hoof it to the winger. He'll run all the way down the sideline, and maybe he'll cross it. Unless his name is Uriel Antuna, he's gonna fake cross it 2
Antuna, I
times,
know. I knew you were gonna say Antuna,
and then cross it after like 2 or 3 fake crosses.
Oh man,
which
I get excited when I see him on the starting 11.
I hate seeing him every single time, but I don't think he started the last couple games under this new manager.
And he's also gotten us a few times, to be fair, and so I shouldn't say I get excited.
Yeah, and they didn't even bring him in this camp. So it's probably gonna be a guy who plays for Chivas, Piojo, who's actually really really good. So cool. I love to see him score. Even though it'd be against the U.S., I would love to see him score because I don't think he got a fair shot under the other managers. So hopefully under the new one, he gets a fair shot.
Okay. Do you think you could do a starting 11 for Mexico?
Yeah, probably, honestly. So if I had to guess, it's probably going to be in goal Malagon, the guy from America. I'd be really disappointed if he went with Ochoa, honestly.
Dude, I thought he retired from the national team. He hasn't, huh? I get it. Legend, but
we just need to move on. I really hope they start Malagon. Center backs is probably going to be Montes and Vasquez, the guys who played in Copa America. Right back, we're probably going to see Jorge Sanchez. Again, somebody we see. And then left back, I don't know, honestly. It's probably going to be Brian Gonzalez, a guy who plays for a smaller team in Mexico. In midfield, I think they're probably also going to do a 4-2-3-1 to start.
Okay.
The 2 holding mids is probably going to be Edson Alvarez. Hopefully he's the captain, because if he's the captain, that means Ochoa's not playing.
Where's he playing now? I forgot.
He's with West Ham right now.
Thank you. Yes. Yeah.
Yep. Next to him is probably going to be Luis Romo or Charlie Rodriguez. I would not personally want to see them, but they probably are going to be there. more likely.
How
So,
come? And who would you like to see?
just they're frustrating. Like I just don't see. It's one of those things where Mexico is not blessed with center midfielders like the U.S. is right now,
Weird.
and it's kind of like the best of what they have. You know, I would personally go for a guy who plays for Toluca. His name is Marcel Ruiz. I think he's like 23, 22. I think he's really good. And again, if the Federation is talking about moving into a new generation, why not go with the guy that's 22, 23 years old? You know, why go with these people who we have seen plenty of times for years on the national team do nothing?
Yeah.
But whatever. So probably going to be Romo or Charlie right next to Edson Alvarez. And then the three attacking midfielders ish, winger, whatever. Left wing, now that we don't have Antuna, it's probably going to be Orbelin Pineda, who he used to play for Chivas, but now he's playing in Greece. Right wing is probably going to be Piojo Alvarado, who's playing right now in Chivas. Center attacking mid, I would like to see Alexis Vega, personally.
Okay.
But it
Where's
might... Vega's playing for Toluca right now.
Thank you.
But it might be Pineda in the middle, and then maybe Cesar Huerta, the guy with like the big kind of afro kind of thing going on.
Yeah.
He might be on the left.
Cool.
And then striker is more likely gonna be Henry Martin to start.
No Chucky?
No, he's not in this camp, and he's been doing terrible for the national team lately. I'm glad he's gone.
It's funny. He's looked decent for. Is it PSV he's playing for?
He's still with PSV.
Yeah, he's looked pretty decent there. Well, end of last season or before, I don't know. Never mind. He was on a tear for a little while, but I guess you're not too happy with him, huh?
No. It's he scored that one goal against Germany, and he's been living off of it ever since.
Fair. That happens in the national team. It absolutely does.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, why don't you give your USA starting 11 and I'll give mine. We'll talk about it and we'll get out of here. So what do you think USA will look like?
So kind of like what I talked about earlier, against Mexico, it has to be Turner. I feel like it just makes more sense. Has to be Turner in goal. Scally, Ream. I would like to see McKenzie. Throw him out there, see what happens, especially because he'll be next to somebody like Ream who's been there, done that.
Yeah.
Throw him in a game that doesn't mean as much yet, but it has just enough pressure to grow. So maybe it'll be good for his development. Obviously, Jedi at left back. The two holding mids, of course, Musa and McKennie. Think you can't really go wrong with that. And then I have Pulisic, Tillman, and Zendejas.
Aha.
And then kind of unpopular, but I really, really like Haji Wright. I love Haji Wright. I think, as we've seen over the summer, he comes up in big moments. And against Mexico, that's a big moment. He kind of offers a little bit of everything, honestly. He's a little chaotic, which is really helpful with the striker. And sometimes he just seems to be in the right place at the right time, just like to see him thrown out there and see what he does. Because I think most of the time when we see him, it's as like a late sub and please come save the day, Yeah. But I kind of like to see him starting. So that's my 11.
I really appreciate your point of view. I think we see different things. And so, but I don't dislike anything you said. I think that's really a fun starting 11. And with Pochettino, I mean, we have no idea what we're going to see. Oh, yeah. So either of these could work. And I like that our ideas are different for different reasons, but here we are. So mine would be Schulte, but I'm with you. Turner against Mexico. I want to see Schulte against Panama as a St. Louis fan, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Fossey did a great job, but I think what you said about Scally, I mean, like you said, shut down Vinny. So I think we need to see more of it. So I've actually changed my mind. I could see Fossey against Panama, but I want to see Scally against Mexico, maybe on both teams, on both games. I mean, I'm going to stick with Miles Robinson because I truly do believe in him. I said enough about him. I'm going to put him next to Ream so that Ream can pass. Totally fine if we want to go younger and give McKenzie the shot there. Jedi, is a no-brainer. There's no one better.
Yeah.
You can't not start him both games, and the dude can run and then still do it the next game. So stick with him. McKennie and Musa, no-brainer there as well. I think this is where it gets a little sticky.
Yeah.
I agree. I think it'll be a 4-2-3-1. Pochettino, I don't know if I said this already, but he said USA would play with both 4-2-3-1 and 4-3-3. It could happen in the same game. Like we don't know what he's talking about. It's very easy to convert between the two anyway. So that'll be a fun thing to watch for. How are the midfielders lining up in this game?
Mm-hmm.
But I put Aronson on the wing. Pochettino said that Aronson has kind of been hurt by not picking a position. So he's been playing centrally. He's been playing on the wing. I think he's better centrally, but I think with the quality of players that we have, we need to put someone like Tillman in the center and Aronson on the wing. Because Aronson's more like a workhorse in these situations. He'll put in a shift. He'll be crazy chaotic as well on the wing. And he'll get in a good pass here and there. And so lots of turnovers and fun stuff from him. Tillman with the flashy stuff. He's the one that might get the assist or the impressive passes. Pulisic's the one that's going to score the wonder goal if we can get it. He's going to put in effort. He's going to be Pulisic. You got to put him in, of course, either on the right or left wing, however you want to line it up. And then I put Sargent up top because I still believe in him. If he can stay healthy, I think he could be the best winger in USMNT, even over Balogun, who shows all the best natural qualities of a striker, but doesn't always put it together. So there's my thoughts.
I have to ask, Phil, kind of a little off topic, but where do you think, because obviously we're coming from two different generations right now, where do you think Pulisic ranks all-time greatest American players? And if you don't think he's number one yet, what does he need to do to get there?
No, he's there. That
You
last
think so?
goal cemented it, dude. Did you see that goal where he volleyed it midair on the long cross from Theo Hernandez? It was gorgeous, dude. And he's been doing stuff like that at AC Milan all year and all last year too. I did not expect this from him. He's where he belongs. And honestly, part of me thinks the Liverpool rumors, maybe don't go to Liverpool, dude. You know what I mean?
No, please don't.
You're healthy at AC Milan. You're happy at AC Milan. You're successful at AC Milan. And I think he's upgraded his game based on, the freedom and the trust he's gotten from coaches and teammates. I think he's a better player, a more confident player. Even confident to maybe know now, maybe don't put USA on your back. Maybe be just your guy and let everybody else help allow you to be the guy,
Yeah.
Be him, if you will, from your generation, right? Did I use that correctly?
Yes, sir. Be him.
What do you think, though? I think he's the best. I think it's undeniable at this point, right?
I agree. I had this conversation with my uncle, and this was last year, I think. And he was like, "Oh no, it's still Donovan." Because he's again, we're both Mexican American, so he's like, Donovan, he scored a bunch of goals against Mexico. He was Mexico's daddy, and he's like, Pulisic still isn't Mexico's daddy until he becomes Mexico's daddy. Then he's number one.
That's
and then
funny.
Pulisic, I forgot. I think it was the Nations League final where he scored and then he got an assist. And he just always shows up in those moments.
Yeah.
He became Mexico's daddy. And I think when you consider the pressure on his shoulders when he was 16, 17 years old coming into the national team.
Yeah.
And I don't know what else you could have expected him to do at this point, at this stage in his career. And he lived up to everything and some, Yeah. I think he really propelled the next generation of American soccer. I think he's an idol for a lot of kids growing up now. And he's got that nasty side to him that he didn't have when he was younger. But as he's gotten older, he's become more of a dog, honestly. He likes to fight. He likes it when people are coming in hard and he's having to battle for it. And yeah, I just think he always shows up. And now that he's been staying healthy, and then we have that World Cup, I can't even stress. I know I keep mentioning it, but I just can't even stress how huge that World Cup is going to be here in the U.S.
Yeah.
And having a guy like Pulisic be the guy, Like, I can't even imagine. Like, I think it's not even going to be a conversation or a debate anymore on who's the GOAT after the World Cup. Like, it's going to have to be Pulisic.
Yeah. Second most goal contributions in Serie A. Second in the entire league. And he's an American.
He's,
I mean,
and
yeah,
he's a winger. He's not even a striker.
I know. Totally. Right. And they want him, if they want him at Liverpool, it's to take the Mo Salah rule, right? So, I mean, that's the level this man is on right now.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. Completely agree. And I'll just say this, as a 41-year-old, you look at his timeline, you look at his life with the national team starting so young. I think you put it very well. He's gone through a lot of stuff and he had a lot on his shoulders at a very young age. And I look at how I've improved as a human being over the years, and I look at how he's improved. Like he's made mistakes, but how amazing, like he's made mistakes in all the best ways. He's learned from it every time. You know what I mean? And he's ended up in the perfect position. And I think he's just wiser and better. He knows when to be the dog. He knows when to be the flashy, incredible striker or winger, goal scorer. When he knows how to assist. I mean, the man at AC Milan, every single time he puts a ball in toward goal in the box, it's dangerous. It's wild. I didn't expect that from him. He can play like a 10 if you want him to. So I don't know. He's just incredible. And he's just, I truly think he's a good human being. I think recently Hercules, I forgot his name.
Hercules Gomez.
Gomez, thank you. He was like, can he lead the United States to victory in a World Cup or like really good games in a World Cup? And he's like, no, he's Landon Donovan. He's too much of he's too shy. He's an introvert. He's not the guy to lead the U.S. And I think that's possibly true. I think it is to some extent when you look at the classic American leaders throughout the years. But if he just is him, if he just does his thing, and Pochettino is smart enough to set up the 10 around him to support him and use him in his best way, and he's confident, like that, it's nothing but good. And I think that can happen under Pochettino. So, sorry, I went on a rant there, but you got me going. And yeah, he's the GOAT. He's the best. We just got to use him right.
I agree. And like, I just imagine the level Pochettino can get out of him,
Yes.
So there's exciting times ahead for the U.S. men's national team, which is why for the next couple of years, I'm a U.S. fan. Until Mexico gets better, I'm a U.S. fan. So
that's fair. Absolutely fair. Well, we are so lucky to have you on, man. I appreciate your perspective on both sides. I'm amazed at how well you pulled the double duty. You know so much about Mexico's team. You know so much about the United States team. So, dude, thank you so much. You're the perfect guest for this situation. Enjoyed your comments on City. So, yeah, I mean, what do you see? Do you see any more writing in your future? Do you see any more press conferences in your future? What do you think? I know I always like to catch up with you before we go.
Yeah. So, the main thing for me was last semester was really tough. So I was taking 20 credits last semester. And so the journalism took like a huge backseat. And then I kind of fell out of the rhythm, kind of did a lot of other things over the summer. And it kind of just never came calling, It was one of those things where I think if I liked it as much as I thought I did when I started doing it, I think inevitably I would have kind of gravitated towards it again. But it never kind of did. It was kind of one of those things where I kind of was okay without it. I was doing other things, getting money other ways because, truth be told, the main reason why I started was because of money. I needed a college job, and there was a ton of. There isn't really a better job I could have gotten, honestly. And then, yeah, the I guess the money changed this year, and at least for me personally, I kind of needed to support myself, and I found other more efficient ways to do that, especially again considering school, because it's kind of easier my first year to kind of balance the school and the journalism. But then obviously, now I'm a junior, my workload has increased. Can't really dedicate the same amount of time as I could before. And so it just really became like a time efficiency thing. So like, should I spend my weekend, basically like 5 or 6 hours out of my weekend going to this game, press conference, and then trying to write something about it? Or maybe, and do that like maybe once every other weekend, or maybe go like referee a soccer game or some soccer games 1 weekend a month or 1 weekend every 2 months, and basically make the same amount of money. Because not that a lot of people don't know, but journalism does not pay much.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
for me, it was kind of like, I needed something different for me personally, because it just wasn't viable anymore. So kind of had to do different things.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Well, you were good at it. I'm glad it was a good hustle for you when it was there. But focusing in on schooling is super important. Sounds like you're still getting by, as one does when you're in college.
Gotta figure it out somehow.
That's right. Well, thanks again, man. Good luck with your schooling and getting through the season. Enjoy the games this weekend. You're gonna watch them. You're gonna go anywhere? Just watch it with family or what?
I'm probably just gonna watch it here in my dorm.
Okay, right on.
Yeah, maybe I'll get my roommate on it, but probably not.
Nice. Well, you can come over to my house if you want. I'll let you. We'll talk about it.
All right.
All right. Thanks again, man. Talk to you later.
Later.